Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Nancy Colbert Puff. I'm the town manager here in Kittery, and I'm really pleased to welcome you to the first meeting of the Kittery Athletic Field Master Plans. We'll have more meetings coming up, so I hope you can spread the word, but I'm really happy to see all of you here tonight. The way this master plan was conceived is almost like a perfect example of a public-public partnership, if you will. When I first came to town, it was in November of 2013, so I've been here just a little bit over a year. And about a month into my service here, I got a phone call from Derval Salima saying he wanted to meet to talk about Memorial Field. And so I said, that's fine by me. You know, what did I know about Memorial Field at that moment in time? And he came in with a pretty long list of improvements that need to be made to Memorial Field, including a pretty large price tag associated with it. So he started asking questions about how the town might be able to afford this list of improvements, and I was brand new to the Capital Improvement Program Committee process, so I had some input with regard to start talking it up as a need in town, and we can see through the CIP process how this might get funded. But much to my delight, he and his group that were working behind the scenes came into my office we met in the interim, probably 7 months, 8 months later, and said, you know what, Nancy, we're not ready to move forward with just Memorial Field. We've decided that the scope of work really should be to look at all of Kittery's athletic facilities and see how we can best manage all of them, whether or not we should be programming them differently, and what all of them need in terms of capital improvements and other smaller improvements that could be made. So he and his group got together and managed to fundraise, probably from everybody in this room, half of the cost of developing this master plan, which made it really easy for me as a town manager then to go into town council and support the request in order to fund half of this master planning process. So I'm so impressed with you all in terms of supporting this process, and I really look forward to hearing some of the needs that come out of this process, because the Capital Improvement Program Committee has been working hard to plan for the town's long-term finances. And you'll hear more and more about how we will be requesting of the voters a potential bond question in June to support various improvements that we need in the town's facilities and to the town's roads, which you all drive on. And the athletic fields have been missing so far from being programmed for improvements in this plan. So I think that this is an excellent way to make the town more aware of all of the needs, how we can improve these facilities in town and actually start programming for funding some of this stuff. I wanted to note that once we got the council funding, we went out for a request for proposals for firms to come and work with us on this plan, and we're really pleased that Weston and Sampson was selected to help us in this project. So tonight you'll hear mostly from them, and then they'll be listening to you about all the needs that we identified tonight. But I'd like to introduce Sherry Ruane is part of the project team, and she'll be speaking right after me. Michael Moonen is here as well, and Chris Perkins is in the room. Chris is from Kittery, so most of you may recognize him in any event. So tonight we are both, doing this meeting here in the Star Theater, but the reason why there are two microphones up here is that we are trying to have this be played on Channel 22 as well. So it's the first use of our portable broadcast equipment. And so if you are talking with people who weren't able to come tonight, we do plan on showing this meeting and all of the meetings on Channel 22 in the future. So thank you for being here tonight.
Yes, just to echo that sentiment, we know that it is snowy and cold and dark, and that you've probably just gotten off work in the last 2 to 12 hours, and that there are many things that vie for your attention. So thank you for coming out. It's absolutely mission critical that we hear from everybody, because these are your fields, and who knows them better than you? Nobody. That was the short answer to that question. So I would like to just very briefly introduce you to the firm. You may or may not know Weston and Sampson. We were actually founded like 116 years ago. I'm not going to start back then. I'm just going to fast forward to the part where we've collaborated with Kittery on a bunch of different projects. The firm itself does infrastructure, which is water and wastewater, as well as geotech and environmental services, and also landscape architecture, and it's something that we take great pride in. And Mike and I actually very consciously have focused our careers on public landscapes, specifically parks, playgrounds, and recreation fields. And if anyone's interested in learning more, you can always reach out to Chris, who's the regional office manager in Portsmouth, but a local. And also we've got a couple brochures on that front table, as well as a sign-in sheet, which I highly encourage everyone who wants to stay in the loop on this. Leave your name and your email, and we'll keep you up to date as websites are updated and future meetings are coming up. But the point of that was really to assure you this is what we do. This is what we eat, sleep, and breathe, is understanding how communities use their open space resources and how best to balance use with how much capacity they can actually provide. Anyone with a lawn knows that grass is only as good as you can maintain it. So if you really beat down on a field, it will only last so long. And so your resources become quite limited. So it becomes really important to understand what are your resources. And so that's what's kind of outlined here today as we've visited each and every one of these fields, and we've done kind of a first pass assessment, which Michael's going to go through. What are the good, the bad, and the ugly points at each of these fields? And then we coupled that with what are the uses? We've got permitting information, we've got league information, and you try to match that with the footprints you have available today, with what's being used, and then you add kind of a projection. What sports are on the rise? How many youth soccer players are you going to have in the next 5 years? And you couple that into a master plan. So that's what we're here to do. And you guys being here tonight, as I said, is really critical. And the reason is we need to hear about the divot in the outfield on that field that your kid twisted his ankle on. We need to know those details that only those who play on them, run on them, walk their dog around them, and visit them often would know. So as we go through, Michael gives his overview. At the end of that, we're going to open it up to kind of question and mostly comment. And what are you guys looking for as far as in a breakthrough result a year from now? We've got this plan, well, much shorter than that. We'll have a plan in like a couple months. But we have a timeline and a phased implementation that's going to get Kittery this absolutely fantastic full-service network of open spaces that meets the recreational goals, doesn't overuse a particular field, and really improves quality of life across the town. That's the goal, right? So at the end, that's what we want to hear from you. I'll be taking notes. We can mark up these drawings with a red Sharpie, like, oh my gosh, this area is always wet and it drives me crazy. Like, that's what we need to hear. Just of note, as we are on Channel 22, someday HBO, but just for now, Channel 22. They can't hear you, only this mic, they can hear you, can they hear? So if you ask a question, I'm going to repeat the question and probably try to summarize the answer very briefly, but we're going to have full notes from the meeting posted online, so by the time this hits Channel 22, you can go onto the website and just read kind of the question and answer session. Otherwise, you won't be able to hear what everyone in the audience is saying, for those following along at home. So those are the goals, and we have a pretty good schedule. We talked a lot about this within the working group of folks, which is made up of town manager as well as residents and recreation and school representatives and maintenance representatives. The key thing was to capture the momentum of this process without driving you all into planning fatigue, which is actually kind of a chronic condition where you talk about something forever and nothing ever happens. So what we did was we scheduled these meetings 1 month apart, which is just far enough apart for us to get something done, but close enough that we're hoping that the momentum and the feedback is captured and you guys all come back and you bring people with you the next time you come. So tonight is the 10th. We did not have to use our snow date. We're going to basically present to you our initial thoughts, but really do a lot of listening and synthesize that data, and then come back. March 4th is the next date where we present opportunities. The snow date is March 5th, same location. And then the final meeting is April 8th, with a snow date April 9th. And there we're going to identify options for the field planning efforts, but that's after coming back to you in that middle meeting with opportunities and saying this is what we're thinking and having you give us feedback on that. So we hear what you have to say, we come back to you with a plan, we get your comments, and then we come back with kind of a preferred scenario and validate that with you. Finalize the report, and that's what starts to inform the overall strategy. So, and then we prepare the final master plan, which will be done by June, we said, so a couple months. And with that, I think I will hand it over to Michael. I'm going to be working the slides, so nobody heckle me.
I'm just going to need to run over and unlock that. After we were awarded the project and we had a kickoff meeting, we right away, due to the time constraints, went around to all the sites and to do the site assessments. It was kind of urgent because we knew the snow was going to be flying soon. And luckily, we were able to get out there about the week of the 20th, and it was just before all this snow started flying. So we developed an overall map showing the locations of each site. And then we have started to develop a key that will tie into each site, showing the elements, the positives and the negatives at each site. Now you could read down those. I'm having a hard time seeing them from here. But each symbol will appear on the following maps. I'll go over each site, and you can just see what we've identified as a benefit or a negative aspect on that site. So, and that's what we're here for today, is to also get your input and correct us if we're wrong, or if I didn't assess something correctly, just let us know. That's what we're here for tonight. So I'm going to go over each site pretty quickly. You guys know these sites really well. You probably know them better than we do. So I won't spend too much time on each one. It's a quick overview to just review the study sites. The first one's Memorial Field. It's overall a really nice complex. However, when you start looking at it closely, you start to see the deficiencies. And you guys know, as users, they show up. But at first glance, you pull in, you're like, this is a pretty nice facility. But then you look closer and you find those elements that just don't work. So I'm going to go over those in the photo boards on the next couple slides. At the left is the complex, the Toby Fieldhouse. You've got a nice infrastructure there, really nice field house, good viewing area, something really nice to build on. So then some of the deficiencies is, as you see, DeWolf Field down in the lower left. It's just the fields and the amenities are just a little tired. They've been around a long time. The fencing's all wearing. The backstops, the buildings, they're just old and they're tired. And then the infields are wearing out. They're getting the depressions and the divots, and it doesn't make for safe play. The lighting system is old also, and could be upgraded. This image also shows the opening in the fence that has to be removed every season so that you can play football, and then put it back so you can play baseball. And that's something that could be alleviated. So next slide. There, as you all know, there's an overlap between the football field and the baseball infield. So that's not a desired element. And then the parking area to the right is It's just not organized. It probably doesn't have good circulation. There aren't delineated parking spaces, so it probably, you can foresee that it's a free-for-all during games. Seems to be dead end. You go down to the end. If it's all packed in, you're probably stuck down there. You can just see that from the site layout. And then again, the baseball field layout and the overlap with the football field. And then a batting cage that was put in somewhat off-site. You kind of have to know to go back there and look for it. Just so the whole area could be reorganized in a more meaningful way. Next site, Shapley. Again, an overall really nice facility. And again, at first glance, you're like, wow, this is a great new facility. But then again, you look a little closer and you find the issues with the site. So then the softball field, it actually looks pretty good. I didn't even go over orientation on Memorial, but that's another element. The orientation isn't great because it's facing south. You have the fencing and the elements with no warning track. Somebody could be running out there and just hit the wall going for a fly ball. The fields are a little bit worn in the high wear areas. Again, there's the overlap between the softball and the soccer field, and it lacks pedestrian circulation, like ADA circulation. And I think we could go to the next slide for some of the photos. So just some of the photos of the site showing those elements. Again, it's got a nice field house with concessions and restrooms, correct? So that makes for a nice element at the facility. New dugouts. So I think Sherry, we could go to the next slide. Mitchell Field, it's at Mitchell School. It's not, I hear it's not used a lot, and it's just an open field. The access isn't terrific. There's the circulation, pedestrian circulation down to the field isn't great. And then we learned over the last week or so, that I think it's sitting on the school's septic system. So we're not sure yet if it would be good to play more on that field. And that's not, I think that field really isn't programmed yet. So some aerial shots of the field. Again, it seems like it gets worn during the season. And then there's the access. The access gate really isn't a pedestrian access point. So we could go to the next one, Sherry. Haley Field. Again, it's a nice facility. It's pretty new, but again, just some deficiencies is there isn't pedestrian circulation. I hear the drainage isn't that great on the field, and there aren't support facilities. So you basically put a porta-john on the site, and that's the irrigation pump house. So, all right, Sherry, next site. This is Emery Field. It's actually, this has a lot of potential. There really isn't much there right now. It seems like it was an old softball field, but right now it's an open play field. So there isn't really much infrastructure there outside of the parking, the basketball court, and the turf isn't in really good condition. But again, that field has a lot of potential. Yep. So these are some shots during actually late summer. So the turf was looking pretty good. And that's the corner. That's indicating the old foul pole from the softball field. So, and then Frisbee Field here at the community center. Again, a pretty nice little league field. But again, the layout here is a little small for play, but I hear it's just for the little kids. And you play some soccer here at this field. So some shots, again, just the infrastructure is a little bit, the infrastructure is worn and could be replaced. So then I think that's the last site. But then there is the last one that we're going to bring up is the mystery site. It's that site that you guys would like to see, that's a really nice complex. But we have to work with the town and work with you guys to try to find a site that would work out, or a potential acquisition or donation that would help to meet the needs. And one other thing I'd add is we've started to compile all the data on the usage. And the preliminary kind of input is that they're all overused. You probably don't need us to come in here and tell you they're all overused. But what we're going to do is compile all that into some different, we're going to compile all that data into something that we can produce with the master plan that no matter how closely it's looked at or scrutinized, it'll show that your fields are overused. And with that, the general field should only be used 250 to 350 hours a year during the playable season. So anything over that, even with the best maintenance, you're going to have deteriorating fields. So we'll take a look at that and then make recommendations, see how many more fields you need, and see how we can reconfigure these fields to meet those needs, and look for that other site or two. So with that, I'll open it up to the questions and discussion.
So yeah, why don't we, I'll go up to the mic. So why don't we, just grab that flip chart and I'll take some notes. So why don't we do it this way? If anyone has a question or a comment or a specific concern, please raise your hand and I'll say, ask you for your name, and I'll just repeat your question into the mic. And then Mike or I will field the question. And also I would encourage you, so we'll do that for a little bit until maybe those who don't want to stand up and speak publicly have waited it out. And then we can also, after that, kind of go stand up here with these boards and the Sharpie and mark up and take comments. Or if there's things that you really want to be heard, there's little scraps of paper on the front table with pens. You can also write down a comment, fold it up, and just leave it on the table, and we'll collect all those as well. So certainly many opportunities for you guys to provide feedback. But I think it is really important for folks who have some really either directed concerns or really exciting big visions to be heard publicly, because that's the kind of thing where other people think, oh, that is a really good idea. I could really get excited about that, or we can have a very constructive conversation. So with that, I will turn it over to the general public, just one at a time. I can see you're all clamoring to ask questions.
I'm involved in the soccer club. We've only got one full-size soccer field in the town. So I don't know about everyone else, but if we're going to go with some kind of a multi-use field, are we thinking like doing a soccer, football, baseball combination, or is that just way past where we're at right now?
So the question was, a lot of the fields are used by the schools primarily, and that there are obviously a lot of other uses. This gentleman's with the soccer club. So the question is, I believe your question is, if you're looking to create kind of a premier central complex that would serve a lot of different sports, is that the question, or are you looking for?
Well, yeah, just as regards soccer, we've only got one.
You've only got one field as a soccer,
yeah,
right?
And there's high school teams, there's middle school teams.
Right, right.
We have a lot of teams using just one field.
Just one field, right.
But if we're going to go with something that's going to be more multi-usage, like instead of going with grass, we're gonna go with turf and
Right.
use the football as well, or?
Right. So another question. So not only about kind of field type, which could be, there's rectangular field type, which serves many different sports. And then there's ball field, which is baseball, softball. Those are really the two major before you get into courts. So one of the questions is, as a rectangular field that potentially sees a ton of use from lacrosse and field hockey and football and soccer and everything, is there logic in considering synthetic turf, which does not have the same limits on it that a natural turf field has? The 250 to 350 hours goes away. You can use that thing in the middle of a crazy downpour and right after it rains, and no worries about damaging the root structure. So that's definitely something that will be considered as a part of the potential solutions, right? So it's something that we can say, you have this many hours of use right now. You have this many fields. You can even the score a little bit by introducing synthetic turf. If there's a wide outcry of aversion to synthetic turf, the answer is, well, then you need to acquire, I'm making this up, don't quote me, 3 more parcels that'll have I see you over there scribbling away. 3 more parcels that have rectangular fields in order to accommodate the use, or 1 synthetic turf field that you can use sun up to sundown and longer with lights. So that'll be a whole part of the conversation, that you'll get that, you know, column A, column B equals ideal usage, not just for today, but projected out over the next couple of years. So yes, the answer to your question is yes, that's all a part of this conversation. It's not far down the road. It's June would be the proposal. How was that good?
That was good.
Okay.
I don't think I need to add any.
Okay. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
I think something I'd like to see is maybe more field house type facilities, because one thing that we see, you know, I have 2 daughters that were involved in soccer, and you go to a lot of these different towns that have tournament type play, and they have a lot of facilities where they can sell concessions and stuff. And I think something like that may be important to think about, because it would be a way to generate money, perhaps to help cover the cost of maintaining the fields. And also the idea of thinking about, you know, if we have these facilities that could be used this way, you know, perhaps tournament play would be something we could bring to Kittery, because not only does that, you know, help the athletics in general, but it could be something, again, that generates money. And so I'd hope that, you know, I don't know, something like that is part of the plan. Or
Yeah. So just so everyone at home and here understands the comment, it was the hope that at each of these great resources and any future field locations, the idea of field house and support structure be considered for each one. A couple reasons. One is concessions, which actually makes for a much more pleasant experience because you can get a snack or a drink. It also is a revenue generator for whoever happens to be running the, so many communities call them the snack shack. Also is an opportunity to provide restrooms, which is, you know, actual restrooms as opposed to the porta potty, which is a huge gain, and also facilitates a higher level of play. So whether that's a tournament or whether that's like a premier championship game, not only does it elevate Kittery's kind of participation in that, but it also becomes a potential revenue generator for outside groups that want to come to a complex and rent the space for tournaments. So that's definitely something. Yeah.
that, like, I mean, there's a couple of different, like, clubs, not even just soccer clubs, but even like a softball club locally that may be willing to, you know, that would love to have a facility, an outdoor facility closer to where they play, instead of having to go up the street somewhere. And
Right.
if we had the ability to generate even a little bit of money renting the field out, I mean, it
Right.
would have to be something that you'd have to consider with the usage of the field and whatnot, but
Definitely. And certainly we've been involved with a lot of cities and towns that carefully balance out-of-town use with a higher fee and in-town use with higher use but lower fee, or no fee depending on the structure. So we understand the complexity of trying to be a revenue generator to help support, but also not displace in-town use, which is obviously a priority and the reason that we're all here to begin with. So we're very familiar with those strategies. yeah.
You have a lot of people that don't have kids and could care less.
Right.
And if you can show that there's a way to generate some revenue and not just make this something the whole town has to support. it would
Yes, that's a great point. So just that there's many people who will need to vote on this that may not have kids in sports and recreation who would immediately benefit, but would maybe understand a little bit better that it would work given a revenue source. I'd also offer that in master plans for these fields, we now strive for multi-generational use. So if there's a perimeter path with exercise stations around the field, or whatever, imagine, so while kids are playing ball, their mom can run a few laps. These are things that we're taking into consideration for kind of all of the plans, so that every single site is usable by the full cross-section of the community, and that also goes a long way to not just being about kind of a subset.
Even adding a small community playground.
Right, and adding a very small community playground for the younger sibling who's there and the parent who's got both kids. All of that comes into consideration, and for very short money, you can actually widen the age use of the entire site tremendously and really have a much wider appeal.
Yeah, well, Shapley has a lot of that. It has
Yes.
the snack shack and it has the walking track and it has the playground close by. But again, it's the one field.
It's the one, right.
If you're going to have multiple fields, then you're going to have multiple
Right.
field houses.
So the comment is that Shapley has a lot of that now, and that as the one field, the question becomes, should there be more than one location that provides that wider cross-section? And part of this analysis will be, is there logic in looking for a centralized multi-field complex that kind of becomes the premier facility, right, the headliner, that's supported by these other properties. So there's one that people know when I'm going for the championship game, or there's a league tournament, or that's the one that is kind of the, premier. And the others, not that they're unsatisfactory, but they may not have as robust a program built into that property, depending on the footprint and what it can support. Obviously, there's some properties up here that aren't going to support a lot of structures and walking, they are fairly compact footprint. Yes?
Being a softball coach for 11 years, I can't begin to tell you how many countless hours I've spent at Shapley working on it. And when we used to play at Toby, I look around the room and I can count a lot of people that put in a lot of time fixing up the fields and so forth. Does this master plan include the town taking over the facilities and maintaining them to where they are? I mean, like I said, the dugouts and stuff at Shapley, I got those in. I did all the field work, and I know Duvall and Mike and John have done countless hours at Toby Field. We were down there so late that the Kittery Police told us we had to leave at midnight, fixing up the fields and stuff like that to get ready for opening day. Are these, for one reason, I know some are town fields, I think they all are. Does this include the town taking them over, doing the maintenance, as far as right down to the minimal, lining them before the game,
Right.
mowing them, edging, getting everything that should be done before spring games, so I don't have to use my practice time to haul weeds away that my girls were doing?
Right.
So I'm just wondering if that is part of this whole plan.
So the question, should I reiterate the question before we go further?
He said he's picking it up.
Oh, fabulous. Nice job on the projection. Good work. Okay, so I don't know, Nancy, do you want to jump in? This is
Sorry to put you on the spot. Being new and everything.
I was hoping that Sherry would have an answer for that, honestly. Sherry? No. I think that the plan has to look at what the maintenance costs of these facilities would be if we end up spending money to improve all of them. But as I stressed sort of at the beginning of our mini-meeting before this meeting, we have to develop a plan that's appropriate for Kittery, and we have to figure out a way to pay for it. So it's not as though, you know what I mean? So the plan has to be appropriately sized. I think we have to take a long-term vision to phase in improvements, and I think that we definitely need a plan for ongoing maintenance. So that has to be part of this overall thought process. But I can't say,
Traveling to other
you know, I
towns.
can't say that we won't
No, I
continue
know.
to appreciate all the
Yeah.
work that the
No, I
volunteers
know.
do.
I mean,
You know that.
traveling to other towns, I see, you know, they have, obviously they're bigger than Kittery, and they have their own maintenance facilities. They do just, you know, all the fields, and then they have another maintenance crew that just lines before the games.
Yeah.
Because, you know, we're lucky enough to have people that like to do this, want to do this, but we're getting old.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And, you know, we won't, I mean,
Yeah.
hopefully, we'll keep having parents that stay involved in the sports and want to do this, but it's dwindling,
Yeah.
you know.
And Kittery's not unique in having to figure out how to care for all of its facilities and joining in a partnership with some of the volunteers, because I've worked in other communities where I've had the same type of input from people. You know, I was out there preparing for the field where was, you know, Public Works doing that. So I think it's kind of a balancing act. But in particular, with regard to thinking about making investments in our facilities, we do also need to plan for their ongoing maintenance. So when I talked about the capital improvement program, you know, this year we started looking really carefully at planning for all facilities based upon, you know, how they depreciate over time. So the plan has been in existence for about 7 years and has done a pretty good job of setting into place almost like a savings plan, you know, such that when we create the community center, we also need to plan for its maintenance. I would think the same needs to be true of the fields, and the fields have not yet specifically been part of the CIP. So.
And that would be part of the conversation about, for example, synthetic versus natural turf, right? So certainly there's an upfront investment in synthetic turf. However, many of the stripes are actually knit into the carpet, right? Or painted on and can be changed over seasons. So there's an inherent ease of operations right there. Certainly, right, there's a little bit of a learning curve because the maintenance crew needs to know how to groom the field, but in comparison to maintaining premier level turf, it's a very different conversation. So it's just something to keep in mind as we move forward with these recommendations. That's a great point.
It's a lot of money up front, but, you know, less money down the road.
Exactly. And I think people get worried what happens in 15 years when I need to replace the field. And this is something we'll explain in kind of the master plan document, is that systems today are so much better than the bright green AstroTurf that you saw kind of in Miami Stadium when it first came out, that now you literally roll up the carpet, put down a new carpet, put new infill in, and your drainage and your infrastructure and really the big money of that system remains completely in place. So this is not at, oh, every 15 years we're going to drop another huge ton of money. It is a big investment, but over the years of use, you simply don't have as much hassle with the operations and maintenance. Yes?
Has there been any investigation as to whether there is a potential premier site in Kittery, whether that's a reality?
That will be to come. We certainly, as we've begun to assess what you have in hand right now, the next piece, as Mike said, is to try to identify either one of these or another parcel that would be optimal from a location in town perspective, ease of access, square footage, who owns it, are there any limitations to redeveloping it. You know, what may be really unappealing to somebody that wants to redevelop it as housing could be super appealing to people that want to turn it into athletic fields. It all just depends. So we need to do a little bit of research, identify some parcels, talk to some people, and see. But I think we can say with confidence, there's a parcel in Kittery that would be great as a premier athletic facility. There's no question about it. It's just making sure we get the right kind of priority factors identified once we've really truly understood what you've already got in hand.
For example, the site just south of Haley Field. I mean, there's already a start there with Haley Field. good access, good parking. Is there a potential to acquire that land to the south and kind of expand a facility? So those are the things we need you guys to start thinking about and letting us know if you think it's feasible. Other things are like Emery Field. We know it's a little further out there. So if that was developed into, say, just a premier softball complex, would it be convenient for you guys to get to? Or if it became a dedicated Little League complex, just for example. We need to know if we should even propose that, because we don't want to come back here with a proposal and then have a lot of people say, well, it's kind of far out there and it's not serving us, the users, you know. Or do you live there and it would become your premier community park in that neighborhood?
Right, and I think that's all a part of the larger conversation about what's out there, what fits where, what's existing right now and programming and working well. Certainly if something's functioning at a high level, there's no intention of unseating that. So that would be all a part of that proposal to you guys next time is, okay, we've thought about this, we've shifted all the pieces and parts around, we've analyzed the data, and this is what we're thinking. And you guys can be like, whoa, 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 you know, hold on there. Or, yeah, great idea, let's explore that further. And that informs the final plan. Yes?
Will your outfit look into the deed issues of the properties that we do have, whether there's any restrictions or anything like that? Or would that be done with something else, or something we should look into?
Deed restrictions as far as what you're allowed to do with the parcels that the town owns right now?
Yes. I'm speaking specifically, the only one I know anything about is a Little League field, and there's some deed restrictions.
Okay.
Yeah, we can look at those and include them in the master plan.
Yeah, if anyone has any sort of anecdotal information about stuff like that, now's a
if
great
Little
time
League
to throw
has
that
be
out.
played on that site, if there's a deed restriction.
I think probably look at the deeds for the Little League and Memorial Field, because they are donated property, and I think there's restrictions there. I also think the Haley Field has restrictions as to how that was given to the town and what it can be used for, and those are the only two I know
I
about.
believe Emery does, but when they tried to put this there, there was some restrictions. When they tried to put the community center at Emery.
Oh, okay. So Emery Memorial and
Free space, right?
Emery's
and Haley, I wrote that really sloppily, sorry. And Haley, okay.
Trying to see the Haley one, is that the one on Pike Road? That was not given to the town.
That's not even given to the town,
No,
so we just right to use it, so.
town paid $250,000.
Oh,
So we bought it.
Town owns it.
Yes.
Whatever.
Yeah.
But there's, okay, I understand what you mean.
Yeah.
But there's, I think, well, we can't even have games there, right?
Well, isn't that because it's not a legit?
Sunday mornings before noon. Well, that's the only restriction.
I think there's parking issues though, too. I think there's something that is not,
Haley.
Haley has extreme parking issues.
I don't think there are enough spots to meet code or whatever it was to, yeah.
They're allowed to use the church because of overflow parking, but they're not allowed to put them down.
Okay.
It's kind of a fair trade.
Yeah, so the town.
Yeah.
So that may not be a deed restriction, it may be part of a planning board approval, is what I'm guessing.
Yeah, it's possible. So, right, so those are good nuances to know. Even if it's an unofficial handshake, you know, that trade-off, just at first blush, seems like a pretty darn good deal, right? A lot of overflow parking if you need it, can't use it before noon on a Sunday, right? So those are good things to know as we look at this and understand how they're going to function. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Just a comment. I just came in late. I'm in a butter to the community center,
Okay.
and there's a facility or an athletic field that is not, from what I see, under consideration. Right in back here, in the 50s, there was a ball field that was built, and the town neglected to maintain it, and it's all grown up. But if anybody could care to just walk out back, you'll see that there's a sloped area, and then it levels right off where a baseball field was designed to go in there. Now, from what I understand, the area is large enough to accommodate a soccer field, a field hockey field.
Sure.
It's right there, folks. All they gotta do is cut down the trees, the town owns it. It's been there since the early 50s. My dad and the CBs on the Navy Yard built it. I was a teenager when they did it, so I know it's there. And I know the town owns it. There are no liens on it. It's
Yeah.
wide open.
It's great.
Use it.
I'm really glad you came to this meeting. Yeah, we'll check that out for sure. And as a part of this, we are collecting all the property line information and overlaying that onto aerial photos. So obviously the goal is that those types of opportunities are realized as we identify what the parcel size is and what's being actively used. I mean, I think my sense is if there's a facility that is wildly underperforming and as a result is not getting the play that it should, let's say, or could if it were in good shape, that would be considered as one of the priorities. Now, we have to see how everything shakes out. If there's overwhelming support for really channeling resources into a centralized premier facility first and then refurbishing smaller assets, that could be pushed a little bit further down. Or the other strategy is invest maybe smaller chunks all around the town. Then it may come right up to the top. If it's an underperforming facility that could handle 100 more hours of use, but nobody's using it because it isn't good, well, then that's an easy win, right? If you just have to invest, 50 grand to smooth a field and fix up some fencing, and all of a sudden you've got another 100 hours of use, well, that's a no-brainer, right? You would do that quickly.
For example, I was mentioning Emery Field, and on the initial use information we received last week, it seems to only be used for practice soccer. Is that correct?
Yeah, used for it.
So, is there potential to use that more?
Yeah, I think
It's a swamp when it rains.
It's really right, but if all that was repaired.
Yeah, so that's a great example.
And you've got a premier facility there.
Right.
Yeah, it rains once, it'll be wet for weeks.
Yeah, so if we improve the performance, right, it allows much, much, much more use, which now takes pressure off other fields. So that's exactly a type of scenario that would be viable.
Other questions are, we noticed there isn't a lot of lacrosse usage. So if you had more fields, would you increase the lacrosse play?
Lacrosse has been pretty new to our town.
It
so
is.
It's growing each year, but
Yep.
it's been pretty new.
We've been in some communities where it's like exploded and they've been just saying,
kind
we
of
just
become
need
the-
lacrosse fields, we need dedicated.
Right.
But,
Like cork is the other white meat. Lacrosse
Yeah.
is like the other baseball. It's kids
other
that are finally
baseball.
so bored of standing out in center field. That would be my kid.
Yep.
That they finally are like, you know what? I think I'm going to
It's
play
spring.
lacrosse. And
Yep.
it's like the numbers are growing tremendously. What was that?
Baseball guy. I'm with you,
No,
Paul.
I know.
I mean, other things like,
Baseball, softball. We're not big enough.
yeah, it does.
there's not a whole lot of, I know you got some space we decided that we outdoor facility, there's no tennis court in town, I know, and that is fee as well. Not only tennis, but.
Right.
Because
So that's a great question, right. That was one of the things we referenced, so there's the rectangular field, there's the ball field, and then you get into the courts. And there's basketball, street hockey, tennis. You can actually make one court that would serve all those needs. This particular study was pretty specific to fields. However, it's worth us noting in this master plan that you only have a limited court opportunity right now, and that should be something, as you look at master plans for other parcels, that should definitely be considered. So that if there's an opportunity to integrate some multi-use courts or some other uses, it just helps to serve more and more people.
Yeah, no, definitely. I'm from Ireland originally, and we have a lot of the court facility there is usually kind of like a hockey rink. You know, it's an asphalt surface, and they'll board it in, and they'll put in 2 basketball courts. They'll put in the holes for the tennis court, and they'll have a goal at either end too for like small-sided soccer. So it's just it's a fun little facility to have, and it's you know, small money.
Where was that one that you were talking about?
We have them in Ireland. Popular back
It's
there.
similar to that.
Yeah,
Somerville
the
court.
multi, yeah.
I'm sure the town will appropriate your trip to Ireland. if you-
Thank you, I appreciate that. We'll book our flight tomorrow.
Yeah, I don't.
So, and then the other one is locations. Do you feel that the community is served by the locations, the field locations in town? Or like in the whole northwest corner, there are like no facility, no, oh, sorry, northeast corner, there are no facilities. Is that important to anybody?
Right.
Yeah.
School, to the Memorial Field, kids can walk there.
Yeah.
You know, you've got Shapley, it's kind of hard to walk from Drake to Shapley.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mitchell Field's the toughest one of all to get to. It's more winding backcountry
Yes.
sort of roads. It's, you know, people coming off the main road to try to find Mitchell Field could
Right.
be in for a little bit of a detour. So
And I think if you could do enough with the other fields, you could probably do away with.
I don't know that Mitchell Field is, I've never, I mean, I've had kids going through elementary school there, and none of them have ever used that field for anything. We sledded on there one time, I think, in 12 years. So.
They said
we played
occasional
T-ball there once.
recess.
Yeah, I think it's pretty much just been abandoned for the most part.
Yeah, it's not on any of the use charts, it's just
6
occasional
years ago,
recess.
we played several baseball games down there.
Yeah.
We had a backstop that was donated to us, we set it up as a field, and just.
Young kids.
Yeah,
Little
little
ones,
guys.
T-ball and,
Yep.
yeah, development league.
It almost feels like it's more building than anything else.
Right. Yes.
Just looking at those real quick, you know, there could be another field that it could be designated for both uses. I know I spoke to a friend of mine, he's not here, Scott Pereira, and I talked because Shapley Field is the only softball field, so you've got all the way from Little League, 8 through 12, junior division, and I'm the coach for varsity, but we haven't had the numbers lately, so we haven't had a JV team, but if in some point we have the numbers, then you're talking a JV team as well, using that field. The field right out here, right at Frisbee, right here, if you were to take the infield grass out, it could be used for possibly like 8 through 10 softball and T-ball and coach pitch like it is now, right? Because coach pitch and T-ball, you really don't need infield grass. So that you could eliminate some of the usage on Shapley Field by having 8 through 10-year-old softball down here at this school, and then that, you know, alleviates some of the use on Shapley. Plus, it's easy to schedule practice times.
Right.
Up at Shapley also.
So what's the general consensus on the quote-unquote, you know, the give is you take grass out of the infield in order to accommodate multiple sports? Is there a lot of heartburn over that from?
Not in this particular field, just because its use is limited to
Right.
the littles.
Right.
Okay.
The smaller
Right, where you
kids,
get to a higher level of play, people start to,
Yeah.
okay.
They're gonna throw whatever.
We use that, how it's split between the softball and the soccer field. It's only for the U9 10-year-olds in the soccer, but it's still a pain having that little bit of infield on the soccer field. 'Cause they're-
Right,
It's crap,
right.
you know?
It's way
If we can-
overused.
If we can coordinate something that we don't have that kind of a crossover. I know that's the same issue with, if you wanted to use Memorial Field for a soccer field, it infringes on the diamond as well, so you don't want to do that. So it's,
The benefit of making Frisbee a skin infield is that you can use it for development league and set up 40-foot base paths and 60 as the kids get bigger.
Yeah, because at Shapley, just so you know, that we do have a fence during the whole season of softball.
Okay.
It's not that fence that you
Okay.
see.
Oh, you have a fence?
We
that
have a
goes out.
breakaway.
Oh,
We have-
okay, that's good to know.
Yeah, so I
too.
just wanted to let
Okay.
you know.
Okay,
But, yeah, I got that donated by the boosters and the town.
okay.
But we do have a fence, but like that gentleman was saying, now there's a hole that hopefully the town will fix. Either that or I'll end up doing it. But now it's within my 200-foot range of my fence where the goal was for soccer
Yeah,
because it's a shared
it
field.
wears out.
And at the
Yeah.
the softball field, I looked it up. If you were to look at a diagram of a legit softball field,
Yeah.
there should be another 10 feet of sod taken out, going
Oh.
out into the outfield to make a legitimate infield
Oh, yeah.
for a regulation softball field.
Okay, yeah, we haven't compared.
And I just, yeah, because I had spoke to Norman from the town about it, and
Irrigation.
he said that could be right where the irrigation is. He wasn't positive, but from last time I talked to him, he wouldn't mind being able to make it a legitimate, because I was saying all the fields that we go to other schools, you look at them, and I'm like, what's wrong?
What's
Something's
the
different.
difference,
And so
right?
I look, and they have legitimate infields that extend way out where they should.
Okay.
For us, that's going to extend right into the U9, U10 soccer field.
Of
Right,
course.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah, even
We
more.
look and we see Emery's underused, and if we can develop that into some kind of facility that we can put two small fields on. Because Haley Field right now is used as two small fields. Haley Field, even though it's a full regulation size field, it's cut sideways, and we use one side for U10s and the other for U12s. So we don't use it as a full-length field.
Yeah.
Like, I've been coaching here 5 years, and I haven't seen it used once as a full-size field, so.
Other than the high school practice.
Well, the high school,
Yeah,
we use
high
it for
school.
practice as
Yeah.
a full-size field, but it's
Yeah.
never used for games.
Right.
All the games are played at Shapley because it's a nicer field. So it runs back to, let's have all the games at Shapley, where we have Haley and all this money was spent on it, and we know that we put a lot of money into it because it wasn't done right, and we did it a second time, and then we did it a third time, and there's a lot of bitterness towards Haley, and now we're using it as two small fields. And it's like, well, why did we put all that money into a field when we're using it as two small fields, and we have Emery over there that we could do something with? And so it builds a little bit of frustration, and I see where you're coming from, Chris, because you put a lot of time into the softball and baseball over there, and yeah, you guys should completely have a full regulation field, and don't be denied 10 feet, for God's sake. It's, you know, really?
Yeah, because, and it's funny, because the athletic director, Mike Roberge, he's a little frustrated too, because obviously he knows a lot of other schools, and where there's a varsity field, normally no other sport is like in the lower grades are usually allowed to play on it. But in Kittery, even the field hockey, my oldest daughter played field hockey on the football field, but yet so do the Shapley girls, and it tears it up horrible. I mean, so he said, he goes, it's frustrating because a lot of other towns, you have a varsity field, that's for varsity. Then you have other fields for middle school and stuff like that. So that's why, like I said, up at Shapley, that's a varsity field, but also Little League and shared with soccer. So, you know, it definitely needs something to be done where, okay, this is designated just for that. There's your field over there. You've got your field over there.
Better distribution of level of play.
Exactly.
So, because when you have everyone play on everything, the level drops, yeah.
Oh, yeah. And the programming issues.
Yes.
Out of curiosity, is part of your analysis looking at the breakdown of the age participants and what sports are the biggest sports? I mean, I know Kittery tends to be big in, soccer and baseball, and just breaking it down to see what is the most needed extra field to add in,
That's exactly right.
and the age levels that need it.
Yeah.
And the trending of those younger kids that are playing all those sports, as they get older, need more facilities for them. So, I mean,
I mentioned lacrosse as an example. It just happened to be in another community that their lacrosse numbers were just trending up like crazy. And that helped us to develop the master plan. So we'll look for things like that. There's some other things too, like the orientation of the fields. I noticed, like, most of them are not at the ideal orientation.
And when you
for
say
any of their
orientation,
sports.
you mean like
Yeah, the
solar
direction,
orientation, so
solar orientation of the
pitchers
field.
and
We
batters.
had trouble with sun glare at certain times of the day. Just anticipating, like Toby Field, the batter at sundown is at risk because it's facing west. And you might even have to shut down the game
Yeah,
for
and it
like a
gets
half an hour
dangerous.
and wait. I'm asking you to verify my assumptions because
Assumptions are correct. I don't know where we shut a game down, but it's usually younger kids playing, so there's not quite as, maybe as much risk, but
it's
you
in
can't see the ball.
your eyes.
So we've had
And then
communities
same
that we
with-
work
yeah.
with go to really great lengths, like catastrophic lengths, to block sun. A field has been constructed, they realize there's an issue, and they go back and shift it like 10 feet, just so that it's out of the, because there's been enough kids who've been hit in the face with the ball that people are concerned. So that's something that as we look at this, we can make those recommendations, because certainly if there's a facility that's going to get a wholesale renovation, well, you darn well better get the best orientation you can, given the land area.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't want to drop a few $100,000 into a field that still has
Yeah.
poor orientation. If you're going to reconstruct the whole thing, you might as well orient it properly. And then the baseball field also, I noticed the full size, it faces, the pitching faces west. So the pitcher could be at risk at sundown, but you do have, I mean, there are a good amount of trees on the other side, so I'm not sure what the actual experience is there.
Yep.
I know at Toby, a few years back, a hurricane took one of the poles down, and actually, I was a little kid, my father put those poles up when he worked for Seawoods Construction. They're old.
Yeah.
And I mean, you can look at the base and see they're deteriorating, so that's something that I would think that need to be addressed fairly quickly, because they could go at any point.
Right.
I mean, it won't take another hurricane next time.
Right.
So, I mean, that's something that needs to be looked at fairly quickly, because if those aren't safe and you take them down, there goes half of the games at Toby, night
Yeah.
games. So, I mean, you know, and obviously those lights now aren't regulation
Yeah,
according to Little League rules.
and they're probably
So
not
there's-
efficient.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Right,
No.
right.
Probably costing you a ton of money to run them.
So, with your collective permission, I wonder if now's a good time to shift from kind of more open comment to Chris and Michael and I can be up at the front talking about specific site concerns that you have or comments or questions. We can kind of linger around the boards, mark stuff up, or you can leave a comment on one of the cards at the table. If people still want to continue with the more open forum, I'm happy to do that, but I also don't want you to feel pressure to come up with things to talk about. Yes?
Just another comment. I have a background in athletic facility construction and maintenance. It seems to me that Kittery has to concentrate, because we have limited facilities, on multiple use of the facilities. For example, I just heard this gentleman talk about cutting out an infield. Out here, you could actually do that, put a long fence along the border, the stone wall up there, a high fence, and the left field line would be wide open up to the parking lot up here, and you could use preschool, I mean, the little kids, the middle school kids, adult softball league, right here. That facility out back that I told you about earlier, all you gotta do is cut down the trees, and the town can do that. They have the facilities. Norm could do that. There's another multi-use facility. You can use it for lacrosse, you can use it for softball, soccer, anything you want. It's right there.
Yeah.
It's right there. Actually, I often thought that you could actually put ties into the slope. It would make a wonderful outdoor theater as well. The other facilities down in Mitchell, I can remember when I was a young kid, there used to be basketball courts out there. We used to play baseball, softball out there because I was a little kid. So, but if there is a field out there in existence, turn it into a multiple-use facility.
Do you know how many acres are down there?
I haven't been up there in quite a while since they built the new building. But
No, I mean down behind here.
oh yeah, I live out. I'm building a place right out here. I'm a neighbor, so.
Are you building the post-convene place? Do you know
Yes.
how many acres are down there, do you know?
Oh, my guess is at least 2, 3. It goes all the way, it abuts to Rogers Park. So it comes from right here, this building, all the way down. There's a hill. And if you look at the town, what do? They do a photograph from up. You can actually see that it comes down. There's a hill.
Right here.
So it's right there.
And then it flattens right out. It is a full-size baseball field.
You can look at some old air photos.
Yeah, yeah.
You can kind of tell
You can actually see the contour of the land. It's there. It's just been grown up for 30 years. We've maintained it. So the idea of a multiple-use facility right there is a natural. But any of the facilities that the town wants to work on, they have to go at it from the aspect of a multiple-use facility. And there are turfs and just grasses that you can actually do and do that and use them.
Do you know about what year that was?
It was done in the 50s. I was about 16 at the time.
Great, thank you so much.
Here's the basketball court. The basketball court in front, we're talking about out the back.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah,
oh,
the
yeah.
annex is
no,
over
back
back
right
out.
there.
So here's the community center, right there. And then this is the back area.
That's it.
So that's where the contours widen out. You can almost see, I was just drawing on this board, they go from being very close
Okay,
together
see where the
to
playground is?
Yeah,
kind of like right.
right next to the playground, right beyond the playground.
Do you think there's a field on it?
Where's the annex up here?
Right in front of the basketball courts. Right in front of the playground.
You're looking at the roof of it right
At the
there.
bottom.
The bottom of the site.
Okay, yeah, it's right behind the playground.
Yeah,
And the
that's what it looks like
Since
on
when
this
has there been a
plan.
basketball court back there?
Yeah.
It'd
Probably
be nice to have it in conjunction with the
after the development.
Kittery Center, and you can put your basketball court there and light it,
Yeah.
you know.
I never knew there was a basketball court back there. Okay, but that's it. It's right down to Rogers Park, and the town owns it.
Okay, so with that, we'll conclude the open forum. Thank you so much good information scrawled in this notebook. And please feel free to come up and either talk about a specific site or general concerns, and we're here to listen, take notes, and then we will summarize everything that was discussed that we were privy to and provide it back to the town, and they'll post the summary of the meeting on the website as well as this presentation. And that's the plan. All right? All right. Thank you. Thank you.